welcome back. Let's get things up and rolling like we normally do. Let's give Matt a call. Da 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 da. Tweedledee, tweedledum, tweedledum.
Hello.
Hello. There we
Hello?
go. There we go.
Oh, could you not hear me?
I could on the camera, but you are now, so it's all good.
Setting everything level-wise up. And then the volume a bit. Oh, my mic's a bit off kilter. Hang on. That'll do. You can actually see me.
Yes, I can see you.
Good, good. Oh, sticker's coming off. Right. Hopefully everything's okay. Anything open that doesn't need to be open? Nope, we all good. Got my drink, my snacks, and everything sorted.
I've got my drink. I'm on a little bit of a cut because obviously festival bloats and shit, so I've got
You
my
had probably way too much to drink.
I mean, there was that, but it's also like just food vendors all week because that's really all you can mostly do.
Yeah, 'cause you're an alky bastard, and probably good for you to cut down.
I mean, I'm not drinking for the next couple of weeks. So,
I mean, are we just telling lies now? Should I just tell a lie?
I'm not drinking for the next couple of weeks. Not until at least next Friday because I have the entire flat to myself next Friday, and that is gonna be Lauren time just to chill out.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you've got the house to yourself, you have a bit of me time. I know I do.
Exactly. Right, so we're obviously not going to talk about the music and shit like that this week because we're going to be doing a separate, completely new podcast for all that kind of download festival talk and stuff.
Well, not just download festivals specifically, festivals in general.
Festivals in general, but yeah, we're going to be talking about stuff like that.
'Cause I know them downloads.
On a completely different podcast because we're boring you guys most likely with the 20 minutes full of music talk, so...
Probably.
Probably.
Sorry,
I've not heard any
I got
complaints. You got milk?
That's my drink of choice. Yeah, milk and some jelly babies, so I'll open them now.
See, I've had some fruit and I've got my water, so... Give him a second while he opens up his jelly babies. That he's really struggling to open right now. This is just not happening. There we go. They're open. Open. See us on me.
Open them from the bottom. Well, back of the packaging. Because, I mean, I went to get something today from the Facebook Marketplace. And I stopped by Aldi because they live in front of our Aldi. So I got some cheap stuff there. Yeah, I'll show it to you now. I got a new MIDI keyboard. There it is.
Oh, nice.
I actually... it's a bit of a side tangent, but because I'm doing the podcast, I'm covering this week's one. I went on the Facebook Marketplace because I don't know if anyone really goes on that much.
Oh,
and
I do. Oh, I do.
I've done a couple times.
I can spend hours on Facebook Marketplace at times to share my shit that people put on there.
I hadn't been on in a while, and I went on, and I missed an absolute snag where someone was selling an Epiphone SG Pro guitar. It was black. It didn't have the pick guard, a small Vox amp, and a Boss ME80, which is basically like a square board of effects instead of like just a single pedal that's got a bunch of effects in it for like £150. And I'm like, that's such a snag, because even the guy in the description, for the first time maybe I've seen, maybe it's been another post, but he's been like, yeah, I know how much this gear is worth. It's worth like over 500, but I'm gonna sell it for 150. This is a snag. Messaged him at the time being like, it doesn't have a pick guard. Would you know where that is? No, it's as it seems. And I'm like, oh great, okay. And he's like, oh, but someone's coming to see it when I asked him if he lived local, so That sucks. But I saw this instead while looking around, and I got that. And then I just went into Aldi. And for some reason, Aldi didn't have any energy drinks for sale. And the only ones I could find were Monster, but that was the packs of it. And I just wanted one. Because I usually just have one single Monster for these recordings.
Yeah,
Or
that's fair.
any type of energy drink.
You could have just like stocked for future episodes.
I could have, but I just wanted to buy a cheap one, so I bought cheap Pringles. Knockoff Pringles, knockoff. Excuse me. Cheap chocolate bar and some jelly babies. Which are okay.
That's good. Okay. So I don't know anything about this case. I've never heard of it before. We're going a bit more on the other side of the world.
No, I didn't mean to go like out there, but I was just looking because there's a Wikipedia page. And I think I mentioned before. It was like list of serial killers by country, and I'm a bit of a geography nerd, so just scrolling through there and seeing like how many folk had come from what country or what countries had like people who had some notoriety on them. I thought, oh, this is great. I'll just pick through them, and obviously some of them dated back to quite old, and I was like, I don't know how good it would be doing a serial killer from, I don't know, the 1400s or like the 1800s, because yeah, we know about them, but evidence and how much we know on what did actually happen. So I was like, and then I stumbled across this one, and I thought, this is interesting because it had notoriety, and it's like of a place we've not covered yet. So hopefully you like the case. I mean, I got the choice, but so you don't know anything. You don't know anything, right?
No, I've never even heard of this guy, so it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, interesting one indeed. Yeah, you're gonna take the reins on this one. I'm gonna sit back and listen and butt in whenever I feel like it, because I'm a little bit of an attention horse. So let's. We'll go.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. Do you want to do the disclaimer then? I know I normally add in a disclaimer at the start of every episode, but since you actually have learned a bit.
Yeah, I'll do a disclaimer on this. Trigger warning, if you will. This case obviously does involve murder, by means of stabbing. There is also mentions of drugs and sex. So that's also, if you don't like in terms of like sex working, prostitution, paying for sex, and murder via stabbing, then that is the trigger warning. There's nothing too gruesome in this. There's also a trigger warning for abuse. I mentioned abuse, but in a lot of cases, people are abused. So, but there's nothing of too varying, like traumatic degree. But if you do get triggered by that stuff, or don't like the talk of people selling their body for sex or people getting stabbed, and you don't like that, then I advise you don't listen further.
Yeah, that sounds good.
If there's other stuff, I do apologize. Just trying to think through the case, because there might be something else I might mention that could trigger someone, but to me it might not seem like it'd be that much of a triggering thing. But that's the disclaimer for now.
Cool.
Excuse me. So the case I've chosen, or the case we're going to cover this week, is on a man called Hayden Poulter, which you've never heard this guy's name before, not at all?
Nope. Never heard of this guy. Very, very intrigued from what I've skimmed of the articles that you've sent me.
So we are going to go over the case of Hayden Poulter. So this man was born, or he's born, Hayden Tyrone Poulter, on August 1961. Didn't have an actual date, but it's August 1961 in Auckland, New Zealand. So this is a case from New Zealand. We haven't done one from there, which is why I thought this was interesting. Because it came on the list that New Zealand had some serial killers, and I'm always intrigued by New Zealand. It's a great, amazing place that I want to visit. But, this seemed like a good case. So he was a serial killer who murdered 3 people in Auckland in October 1996 between the 19th and the 26th. And the reason I decided to cover this case is he has been labelled in the media as New Zealand's first serial killer.
Interesting.
So yeah, I thought we should give a...
That's quite late.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But the thing I thought, though, is that it is late, but if you know New Zealand, it doesn't seem like late, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because of a
yeah.
lot of things. I mean, every country has something bad.
True.
But from what I've seen in media, from what I've seen, New Zealand do a lot of things quite well. And there will be crimes that happen, but in terms of notoriety of stuff, compared to obviously like the UK, America, Russia, like France, Japan, we're nations where like there's been cases, huge cases of stuff throughout our entirety that it's just, another one will happen to add on to the shed loads we have. And the media knows about this because there's so much cases that happen that the media reports on of tragedies that happen here. So New Zealand's one of the ones where as far as I'm heard, there's never been like a tragedy of like this sort of like serial killer esque or murders or that sort of thing in the media. And if it is, it's like a natural disaster that happened in New Zealand or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought we should give a bit of context on New Zealand because I know people know about New Zealand, but if I said to you like New Zealand, explain, could you tell me much about New Zealand in itself? You know what I mean?
No, not really. Other than their like gun control's quite high up there, similar with ours. I know they. It's very. It's not really. Most people just tend to ignore, not necessarily ignore New Zealand, but when they think of New Zealand, they mostly just their brains go to the bigger island that's right next to it, which is Australia.
Yeah. I just feel as though it's one of those nations where people know it's there, but knowing more about it, which kind of gives help and context to this, considering he's the first serial killer. But in terms of like, unless you're an American who's just incompetent about everything, if you say America to people here, they go, "Oh, okay, yeah, America." You can name a few states. People from that state's California, and then you can name serial killers from there, or like New York and that sort of thing. There's more knowledgeability than just the U.S. Ah, yes, I know of it. Could you tell me anything? No. Or like us, or like France, etc. sort of thing. So New Zealand is an island country nobody knows, which is off the coast of Australia. So it's in the region of Down Under. So it's in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. So, you know, it's the seventh largest island country. Wikipedia said sixth, but it's not. It's behind. It's actually the seventh largest island country behind the Philippines and ahead of us. Actually, its total land area is 268,838 kilometers squared, which is more or less 269-ish kilometers and 104k-ish mile kilometers. But it's also interesting that, you know, it's an island nation. It's like us. Um, for people who don't watch or listen to this podcast, or know what it's like being an island nation, New Zealand are kind of, I guess, like us. I know they're a bit bigger than us, but, for most people who don't listen, being an island nation's not like a bad thing. But there's nothing you can really compare to other places. I mean, island nations, we have just as bad criminals and just as bad serial killers as anyone who's not an island nation. But yes, they're New Zealand's like brothers. They're kind of similar to us, but not. But they're like basically everyone would see New Zealand as just the other Australia, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
New Zealand's basically two islands, which is made up of the North Island and the South Island, and I've written them down what they are in a language where I'll explain. But there's the North Island and South Island. Pretty easy. New Zealand's capital city is Wellington, and the most populous city where this crime happens is Auckland, which is located on the North Island and like the Greater Auckland region, so it's like right at the top. Which I looked at it in Google Maps. There's a lot of roads and shit that go to it. It's a pretty big place. It's quite big, so it's not like this has happened in the remotest place. Because I know New Zealand's an island, but some people might be listening, going, because it's two islands, is it like in this most remote part and there's like just this area and nothing else around it, So today, the majority of New Zealand's population is over 5.1 million. So most people are European descent because we colonized there, but a lot of people are also Maori, which is the largest
Mm.
minority, which is why New Zealand's interesting because it has a lot of people that have come over from like the Pacific Islands, and the Maori, if I'm saying that correctly, is like its big culture thing that New Zealand has. Like a lot of people are Maori, so it's derived from them and British people. So the official languages are English and Maori and New Zealand Sign Language. But yeah, it's this weird eclectic mix of British culture and a lot of Pacific Islanders culture that just like mashes together in like mundles within itself. It's a very interesting place. So having something happen here in a place where the culture is kind of like home where we are,
Mm.
but not, if that makes sense. Because a lot of New Zealand looks like Scotland in some places, and a lot of people act, they speak English and they act like Australians and British people, but a lot of it's mixed with Pacific Islands as well. Eclectic mix. But that's basically a shorter summary of what New Zealand's like. So, a pretty easygoing place. So, the fact this guy's been the first serial killer and it's happened quite late on shows that New Zealand's not notorious for having very high profile criminals. They really know what to do with stuff, shall
Yeah.
we say. I think you'd agree with that as well, Lauren. I think New Zealand handles stuff quite well.
They
Or from what
handled
they
they
show.
handled the pandemic probably the best way.
Yeah, they did.
They were very on it from the start. They handled it very, very well.
We could learn a few things from them for sure.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
So yes, we're gonna talk about Hayden's early life. So Hayden was born in August 1961, as I said, in Auckland, New Zealand, to British migrants who had moved to the country. As I explained before, a lot of British people came over, influenced there. So his father was a violent person. He left the family and the country, which left Hayden to be raised by his mother and his stepfather. During his teenage years, he spent time in different foster homes where he claimed he was abused. I'm not saying all foster homes are like that, but he's claimed he's abused. But I feel from some cases I have read that there's a stigma with foster homes, people getting abused. But
Foster homes and orphanages, yeah. There's a lot of there's been a lot of issues with some. Not all are like that, obviously, but there has been
some of them.
They've got a
some of them,
reputation,
yeah.
to say the very least.
Some of them are nice, like your Tracy Beaker type. But why is that funny? Tracy Beaker was a great show.
Tracy Beaker was great. I just know it's not accurate.
Yeah. So in 1978, he joined the Navy, but was later discharged.
Serial killer bingo. Take that one off your bingo cards, guys. He was in the Navy, military of some kind.
In the Navy. Cue the YMCA song. Yeah. So Hayden went to work in various jobs.
He was born in Carlisle, but he was raised in the Royal Navy.
Ah, yes.
Sorry.
He turned off the Wi-Fi and turned it on again. Ah, well, you can fix a Marine Corps ship. Join the Navy. Sorry, if nobody understands, there's an advert in the UK about joining the Navy, and it's basically like some kid was like, when I was 3, I learned how to build Lego. Well, not really. Something along those lines. I was like, when I was 7, I learned how to fix a bike. Age 10, I could fix a car. Blah, blah, blah. If you can do this, you can join the Navy. I was born in Carlisle, but I was made in the...
Always
and it's
Carlisle.
like a joke now, but...
Always
the
Carlisle.
Navy's not a joke in itself, but...
No, but that advert's always Carlisle, and it's always
if you know Carlisle, I've got a mate from there, it's...
Yeah, I know someone from Carlisle, and he does get that shit quite a fair bit, and he doesn't like it.
So yeah, he joined the Navy but was discharged, and he went to work in various jobs including advertising, farming, fishing, shearing, and demolition. However, between each job, he would rack up a string of convictions, reaching 67 in total, but none of them were for violence. I don't know what those 67 ones included, but
listed.
none for violence.
It's not listed anywhere.
No, it just said reaching convictions of 67 in total, but none of them were for violence. I guess because it's 67 and the period of time.
I'm gonna guess if it wasn't
didn't.
anything to do that would make him look like a future murderer, then it's probably nothing overly bad. I mean, you'd hope, but like they'd obviously.
I mean, if none of them are for violence,
they would put it if it was
becomes a killer.
something extremely bad. If it's like shoplifting or petty theft shit like that, it might be that.
Probably. I'm not sure what the strict rules were for New Zealand there and their laws, but 67 nonetheless.
Yeah, still not good.
Hayden suffered from epilepsy and depression, having attempted suicide at least 3 times. He did manage to have a brief relationship with a woman to which he fathered a son, but by the early 90s, they both left him. And he entered... Yeah. So he entered Odyssey House, a drug and alcohol support service based in Christchurch, seeking treatment for his addictions, because I can imagine at that time, a wife and the kids, and, you know, drugs, alcohol, and them leaving him doesn't really sit well, and then he might slump into a very deep depression as he tried to kill himself, so it's not looking good.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was pretty much close to graduating from this place, you know, to get all the clear, but then he, like, relapsed again, which is sad. Excuse me. It's sad because, you know, these drug people, you know, like, people might be in this case as well, where they're so close to the end, but they just couldn't push themselves that bit further and they relapse again. But by this time, Hayden began stalking, now if I say this correct, Karangahapa Road. I'm going to refer to it as K Road, but this is like the infamous road. It's become an infamous road in New Zealand, but Karangahapa Road, I think is how you say it. It's probably derived from the Maori language. So he began stalking this road as, in quotes, what he's told the police, he was looking for a bitch to kill. Apologies for that B word, don't call women that. He was hooked on LSD and cannabis, and he was in a relationship with a woman he met at this Odyssey House who was a sex worker. So, interestingly enough, for my research, K Road, which we're going to call it from now, was the first street in New Zealand illuminated by modern street lights. Essentially, in its heyday, this road in the 80s and 90s was a kind of hot spot where prostitution happened, even though prostitution was illegal. It was like the known road for doing that sort of stuff.
Oh, it's like that everywhere.
So,
I mean, it is legal here.
Yeah, but maybe but I think then it's not. And, you know, at the time, having a road dedicated to it and it being like a notorious hotspot, people would go to there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's always a hotspot for that kind of stuff.
So, basically, that woman that he was in a relationship with, a sex worker, that woman was jailed after her aggravated robbery of a dairy, and during that incident the police shot her, and that was all it took, Hayden said, for something to be triggered in him, something that was building up for years.
Bull fucking shit. I am not accepting any fucking stupid ass excuse. Like, This woman who I barely fucking knew, who was a sex worker, who I bet he barely fucking knew, got shot by police officers, which is fucking shit and fucking tragic, and the police officers should be held accountable, because she was only fucking, like, it was a robbery, yeah, okay, yeah.
A dairy?
It was a dairy, so yeah. But, like, I bet you there's some other fucking way that could have been dealt with. But either way, yeah, like, it's like, oh yeah, that happened, and now I have the urge to murder. It's like, fuck off, do one, you stupid gammy twat. I'm not having this bullshit of, no, this isn't right.
Gammy?
Shut up, you dick.
Gammy? I've never heard the word gammy being used. But yeah, it just had triggered in him, which I think was him meaning he got pushed. So, security cameras, because this is his first killing. We're going to go on. So, security cameras captured the last moments of sex worker Natacha Hogan's life. The 21-year-old was wearing a black and white dress with a red blazer and black ankle boots when she encountered a reveller returning from a rugby match. She once lamented to a television reporter that her work was unsafe, but that's the risk you take, because one of her friends, Jane Furlong, had disappeared from K Road 3 years before. So these people who were doing the prostitution knew work was unsafe, but they just took the risk for the money. I mean, if anyone is listening and you are a prostitute, I don't know how it goes, but from what these people
for context,
are explaining, they just...
For context, the new term is mostly just sex worker.
They use the word sex worker.
Yeah, the prostitute tends to be used in like a very negative light. That's why it's got yours as sex worker.
It's just the term that I've known, and I do apologize if anyone's listening and they don't like the term, but we'll use the term sex worker.
Yeah.
But it's used a lot here, but you know, it's not a very horrible word, but if it is using a bad light, I apologize. But there's just been that stigma. That's the word everyone's used. So. But yeah, people obviously at this time, these sex workers knew that they were running the risk, but money be money, and they wanted it. So.
And life isn't easy a lot of the time.
No, and I guess at that time, if being a sex worker, was illegal and this road was notorious, you know, people could have got easy money for it if people were just flocking to this area, wanting it. That people could just do it themselves.
Yeah.
And get some decent money out of it. So shortly before 5 a.m. on the 19th of October 1996, after trawling 2 bars for victims, Hayden met Natacha Hogan on the street. They negotiated $60, New Zealand dollars, because New Zealand uses dollars, not US, for sex and walked towards Pigeon Park, which is a public park area within Auckland. I had a look at it. His car was nearby, but he preferred to have sex in the park, he told her.
Weirdo.
You do you? I don't know why you're having.
I mean, yeah, you do you.
It's 5 a.m. Sex in a public park.
Yeah.
Sex in a public park.
It's fucking weird. Like, you're gonna be cold. It's 5 in the morning. It's fucking freezing.
Yeah, and plus, it's
you're not gonna be able to get hard anyway. You fucking weirdo.
It's definitely one of those places like here, like just doing stuff in public is just a no. I know in some countries people do it, and it's just I know in Brazil a lot of stuff crazy like that happens. But correct me if I'm wrong from what I've seen. But like, it's 5 a.m. in the morning. There could have been people going out and about. It's just ridiculous. But he wanted it in the park.
Yeah, his fucking nipples. His fucking nipples would be harder than harder than him. He'd be able to cut glass to fucking loom.
Jesus Christ! Calm down. The dog in his dick. I didn't think about that. I just thought, oh well, he's gonna have sex in a park. I did have an image thinking, well, this is gonna be screwed, but you know, $60 for sex. I don't know what prices are like, but
60. Oh, fair.
That's what it says. $60.
Fair.
60 New Zealand dollars, which I didn't bother to at that time find out what the price of those were and calculate it how much it would be now.
Dude, that's pricey.
But back then, that's probably a lot. Just for, you know, one night of sex. Or one morning, I should say. It's 5 a.m.
Probably finish in 30 seconds as well. Fucking idiot.
Probably. I mean,
he looks like the type.
An image of him.
He looks like the type to hit it for 10 seconds and quit it.
Yeah, I mean, there's images I've sent Lauren from a site which you could put up.
Yeah, happened.
Of stuff. As I've explaining. So yeah, as they walked to the park, he removed a Jack Daniels belt buckle and put it in his pocket, ready to carry out his plan. So Hayden then robbed. Oh, trigger warning! It mentions rape as well. Rape and murdered Hogan by bludgeoning her to death. Her body was later found by a nun walking her dog. After the nun, who's called Sister Swindle's discovery.
I'm not going to make a nun joke at this moment in time, but there is one there.
Is there? So yes, after Sister Swindle, which was her name's discovery, police found a messy scene littered with evidence that painted a clear picture. When police found her, they saw that her, it says slight frame, I guess it's her head, I'm not entirely sure what they mean by slight frame, had been bashed with 2 rocks, weighing a combined 44 kg. Bodily fluids and a condom were found at the scene. Natacha's purse was missing, and the $60 was in her jacket pocket. So after that, he's obviously fled the scene, and done the sex and just fucked off. 6 days later, Poulter sent a long letter full of misspellings to the New Zealand Herald's Auckland newsroom. Now, Lauren, I sent you a photo which has absolute awful handwriting on it, and it has more than what I'm going to say, but this is a part of what the letter reads, and his writing's horrible. I know mine's bad, but the letter he sent to the New Zealand Herald Auckland room read this: To all you stupid fucks, I'm writing to you fucks, because those pigs, police, bad word to call the police, do not have a fucking clue. I don't even think they can read. I thought they would have caught me by now. This man's got some balls to write to the police.
You
Called
could
him.
read that.
What?
You could read that.
Oh, that's not what. There's other stuff that says on that.
But you could read some of that. Like you can.
I could read some of it, but I think it's on the other side of the note.
Fuck me! I've seen 2-year-olds have their handwriting in this
Yeah,
guy.
the handwriting's not good.
It's fucking dreadful. You
And
can tell he's a psycho. Jesus.
Sorry. And that's for an elderly man who's, not in his 20s.
How old is he
or
at this point?
30s. Wait, we're on 1996, and he was born in 1961.
Well, that's not that.
So you can work that out.
What? So he's like 35?
Yeah.
He's not that old. He's not elderly.
Nah, kid. Yeah, he's 35. I just said it as a joke.
I've just heard all my friends just like hearts drop because they're all turning
Nah,
30.
I only kid. No, I love saying that though. I love being like elderly to folk and they're in their 30s, and I'm like, but no. So if you look at the note, there's a bit on the bottom that says NBK, which presumably was a reference to Natural Born Killers, a 1994 Quentin Tarantino and Oliver Stone flick about two mass murderers who were victims of traumatic childhoods, which I guess would make sense. He had a traumatic childhood in his eyes, so maybe that's why he put it there. But
Cringy cunt.
it's just the balls he had to send that note to the police, calling them the P word, being like, I don't even think they can read. They would have caught me by now. More or less bragging. That's the thing he does. He brags.
I don't
He likes
think
to
they could.
brag.
Like the whole. I don't think they can read. I don't think anyone can read if you're writing shit, mate. Like I don't think any cunt can read if you're writing anything. Like you could no. Like the most intelligent person, those kids that can spell out like really insane words at like the age of 5. They wouldn't even know what the fuck he's trying to say.
Iridocyclitis.
Yeah, that cunt wouldn't even know what he's trying to say there.
Yes. No. So yeah, I don't like to shit on anyone's writing. Mine's bad, but his is quite bad. So on that, a former reporter, Roger Wakefield, remembered it. That note, or that letter, it was opened by a colleague at 8:45 a.m. on a Friday and was passed on to him, the day shift police reporter that day. An explicit schedule, later provided to the court, shows Wakefield handed the letter and envelope to Detective Constable McGivern at 11:30 a.m. on the day it was received. It was kind of freaky, actually, Wakefield recalled this week. It seemed like it had a feel of being genuine. I rang the guy in charge of the case, and he sent someone straight away to pick it up, because it said stuff the killer would know. Although Hayden boasted of other murders and described himself as a serial killer in the letter, Wakefield was dubious. I don't think the police were able to link him to any other killings, and in my opinion, Poulter was attempting to bolster his reputation. I describe him as a sad megalomaniac who went berserk for a week, rather than a serial killer. And quotes I have here from the sex workers at the time, because, this has happened, and it's a scary period, because a sex worker has just been killed. And they're in that repetition of work. And, it'd be scary. I mean, accidents happen all the time in workplaces, but for them it would have been scary. So there's a quote here that says, 1996 was quite a fucking hell of a year for us all. Terrifying as fuck. Which is what a former sex worker, Amanda Wolf, says. Wolf was actually friends with Natacha, and the pair, a similar age, were part of an unusual trio who stuck together on K Road, but persistently fought with one another. So these sex workers knew each other in the industry. So obviously, if someone they know and their work's dead, it would be quite terrifying because they don't know if they're gonna be the next victim. All those people out there going for them. So the third wheel of that trio was Jane Furlong, who was the person I mentioned who'd vanished 3 years before Natacha was killed. And Jane's skeleton was found 2 decades later at a remote beach, and her murder remains unsolved. a documentary was made about Furlong's disappearance, which featured Hogan naively saying death was a risk that sex workers were willing to take. So they weren't stopped by any of this. They were scared because obviously the Jane Furlong had vanished, never found her killer. This Natacha has been murdered, and they know it's a risk, but they're still doing what they're doing with that risk. Which props to them. I wouldn't. If I was doing something like that, I would have just stopped, you know what I mean? And just said, no, I can't do this profession anymore because I could die.
Yeah. I mean, we saw this with the Yorkshire Ripper case. There were so many murders going on with sex workers, but they just didn't know what to do. At that point, it's one of those where, from what I've seen, it's very difficult to get out of that line of work. Mostly because your clients could be anywhere. There's also that
and you get
risk.
used to it. You just get used to it.
Yeah, and then you got the money
work.
aspect of it, and it's like a bit easier to gain the money, but at the same time, it's also like it's just difficult. It's a difficult life.
There's
a few documentaries on people who do sex work. If you are interested in knowing their ins and outs of their daily life and why they're still doing it, definitely go check out some documentaries. The BBC have done a few of them. If you want to know a bit more, but it's not an easy life to stop.
No, you kind of lapse into it, and if it's all you know, you just like stick with it, and like doing something else, you just wouldn't know how to.
Yeah.
Because you just get so used to that. Excuse me. So, Natacha's murder was the culmination of years of attacks and murders of sex workers. In 1989, a young Leah Stevens disappeared into the night from the corner of Upper Queen Street at K Road. Her body was later found at the Murawai, and her boyfriend was charged with the murder. Then in 1990, Debbie Purdy, another sex worker, was strangled by her husband on K Road. So this has notoriety, this road. Although, yes, it's where sex workers worked, but it's where a lot of them are ending up dying. So, at the time of that Furlong person's disappearance in 1993, many street workers feared their lives. We were petrified, Wolf says. You could feel the tension. Normally people would say, well, I won't do a New Zealand accent. Oh, I'm from New Zealand. Hello, doll. That's terrible.
That was
say
terrible, yeah.
New Zealand have a weird accent, though. Rowan. Only people I watch Viva La Dirt League, and they're from New Zealand. They're a funny comedy trio. They're really good. Watch them. They have other people in there, but that's how I know of a New Zealand accent, and I can't do it. But besides the point, normally people would say, "Hello, doll. How are you doing?" You'd share a cigarette, a drink, but when there's issues, you'd find people were too scared to work, so they just go around stealing off each other. She recalled finding out Hogan had been murdered, initially believing Hogan's death to have been confused with the others. Hogan was not a particularly well-liked figure on K Road, Wolf says, because of odd habits she had like spitting or smoking in people's cars and accidentally burning their vinyl seats. But she was also generous, and fun, and free-spirited. And Wolf recalls Hogan routinely spoiled Amanda's children with clothes and toys. She recalled a time when the pair bought nearly $100 worth of McDonald's and shared it amongst children who were living on the street. She was always generous to people. By then, New Zealand's Prostitutes Collective had set up a base near K Road. Its coordinator, Catherine Healy, spent time there working with the Department of Health to encourage the sex workers to operate safely, while simultaneously battling the police who routinely raided massage parlors. The tension resulted in a distrust of the police, and the collective launched its own system of registering dodgy clients. Women reported their experience to the collective to build what they called an ugly mugs profile. It was a potpourri. Well, that's what they got there. It was a potpourri of people, drama, drugs, grog, and gangs. Private investigator Ian Varley tilts his head back, trying to remember working the beat along K Road in the 80s. A detective at the time, he had a front row seat during the street's darkest days. He recalls this like road as seedy is a reasonable description of it. I don't think you would have taken your mum up there for a cup of coffee. That's the best way to describe it. There were characters up there. Most people wouldn't have lived a life like that. They certainly wouldn't have experienced it. Varley remembers Furlong and Hogan, but only just. There were but a couple of many working girls who lingered around street corners. But as of today, the K Road is nothing like its younger self, according to Varley. The community of characters which used to colour it have all but moved on. It was the disappearance and deaths which began to spell the end of an era for like this K Road. So more or less after he does his stuff kind of goes down, and what it's known for just completely changes because of this. And because he's New Zealand's media coverage as the first serial killer in New Zealand, I could see why they changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some places like, you'll know this fine for you, but like in Aberdeen, there's just some notorious places which are notorious for stuff, and it won't change, and it's not changed for a long time. And it'll probably be the same for Manchester. There's notorious areas or people.
Yeah.
And it's been like that for a while.
Yeah, Manchester's got a very weird one. There's quite a few
not changing
areas that are like, oh, don't walk there on your own at night kind of thing. Like the area where I live in used to be like that. It's changed a bit. It's nowhere near as bad as it was in like late 90s, early 2000s, which is good because they've really done up the area. But I mean, that's the reason why, is because they've done up the area. But there's places like Broughton. Don't go to Broughton on your own at night. I wouldn't recommend that. Langworthy, don't do that. Beale Hill Park in Langworthy, don't do that. Weast, same thing. There's quite a few areas. Hume, Hume especially, Manchester. Manchester, don't go to fucking Hume at night, because that's just, it's not safe at all in the slightest. There's a few areas in the city centre I definitely avoid going in when it's dark. Few people, I can name a few. There's if you're in the emo scene in Manchester, Danny Edwards, he's a prime one. Bit of a dodgy, bit of a shit person. Never met him personally, but mostly because he's banned from most places in Manchester. But
oh wow,
yeah, he's banned for being he's got a type in girls.
Yeah, but
so
there's areas just and people.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and that's never going to change. Yeah.
No, and as much it's like that in Aberdeen. There's areas where I want them to change. You know, you make jokes about them, but like in this case, it took people getting murdered and disappearing for people to be like, oh, this can't go on anymore, which is a good thing because it might have continued. Made there have been more murders probably, but it's changed for the better now. I haven't looked at it on Google Street View, but obviously New Zealand were tough to crack down on that. They knew it was there, but they were acknowledging it, and this stuff sort of happens.
Yeah.
So, but he doesn't just do the one killing; he does more.
Of course.
So the next day, October 26th, 1996, Hayden watched a game of rugby at a Fort Street bar. Fort Street, from what my Googling was like a chain of bars. It wasn't like the name of the bar. Because obviously, like in the UK, there's bar chains, but you could go to your local pub and it could be called something. So he went to a Fort Street bar, downed some beers, and made his way to a massage parlour door. Which was a little bit away, and the massage parlour was called Cleopatra's.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier in the day, he'd bought a large army-style knife with a 16cm blade. It was hidden on him as he entered Cleopatra's massage parlour. So, Cleopatra's was managed by Herbert Richard Norris, who was living there with his new wife. Norris was middle-aged and had several children to former partners. A receptionist was working there when Hayden Poulter came in at 4:20 p.m., paying $50 for an hour in a room with his pick from two Thai women. Their names are Angakana Shai Chai Samret and Lada Nimfet. Lada brackets Linda Nimfet. Probably butchered them, but he chose Lada Nimfet was the Thai woman he chose. At some point, Lada left the room to make him coffee, and while she was away, Poulter, got the knife from under the bed, which he'd hidden. He'd obviously taken it out of his jacket, hidden under the bed. The managers of the parlour, Herbert and Angakana, heard screams as the door swung open. A naked Poulter emerged holding a bloodied knife. Poulter then stabbed both Norris and Chai Samret before fleeing the parlour through a second-story window at the back of the building.
Still naked.
All three victims suffered multiple stab wounds, both Norris and Nimfet. So Nimfet was the one he stabbed in the one after she made him coffee and come back. And Norris was the owner, succumbed to their injuries, but Chai Samret survived. Luckily. So the other two succumbed to theirs.
Jesus.
So after he stabbed them, hours later, a wounded Poulter, Hayden, who was bleeding from his leg, walked into the Auckland Central Police Station at around 11:13 p.m. and placed a knife on the counter. He surrendered to the police and confessed to the murders.
Really?
So he
wait. Is he doing this? Is he doing this butt ass naked?
I think so. I'm not too sure. He might have stole clothes.
I mean,
there's no images of him naked, obviously.
I mean, yeah, no one wants to see that. No one wants that. I've seen a picture of his face, and no one needs to see the rest of him. So
no. But yeah, he just goes to the police.
That's
confesses there and then.
Weird.
It is.
It's
he
not,
obviously
it's not
planned
often
this
that
out.
you see this. It's not often that you see that where they actually just give themselves up. That doesn't really ever. It happened with Ed Kemper, but that's because he finished and did everything that he said he set out to do. But
yeah,
you don't really
he planned
get
this
that.
out, obviously, because he went to the massage parlor.
Yeah.
And knew he was going to kill one of the people he paid for. He obviously enjoys sex and sex workers, so he killed them. But obviously, when the other two came in,
Well, obviously, massage
Norris
parlor,
and...
they're not sex workers.
Oh, sorry, no. I
So
do.
He just liked.
Yeah, well,
Kill people.
I meant to say he liked massage parlors and.
Yeah, okay, yeah, like, yeah, both.
I'm assuming, I said sex workers, but I'm assuming because of this guy, he went in the massage parlor to probably touch them more than he's probably allowed to.
Yeah.
Because that's the type of person I get from this guy. But he obviously went in there with the intent of, because he'd trawled the area before and he went in that bar. But obviously, Norris and Nimfet had survived. Succumbed to the injuries, but it was Norris and Chairman said that heard the screams and obviously went to check, and he just stabbed them there and then because there would have been witnesses. So, it's which is sad because if Norris maybe hadn't have gone to check and Karam set, then they might have still been alive. But no, Karam set survived. I keep saying this wrong. Karam Shasamret, if I say it right, I keep butchering the name, was the one that survived, and that was one of the ones that heard the screams. But it was Nimfet, the one that was in the massage room with him. So we obviously intended to kill one of them.
Yeah.
Just so happened he chose Nimfet, and she died along with the owner who heard the screams. Sorry, I was saying that all wrong. But confusing myself. Which
See,
sucks.
it's not
I
easy,
mean,
is
all
it?
of them he probably intended them that they hoped he would all of them would have died, but one survived, thank the Lord. But he probably he turned himself in, but he's the type of person that, from what that seems, is like he'd commit a murder and just, if there's any witnesses, just stab you guys, you can't know anything, and dash away. But he obviously decided, nope, I will go in and confess myself. The fact he went in and had the knife and put it on the counter of the police station, Auckland Central Police Station, like a big police station because Auckland's huge,
Yeah.
and just surrendered. So long before he went to the police station and asked to speak to a constable about important matters. Poulter had a history of needing to confess to his sins, his mother said. In his youth, he would escape from an institution, commit an offence, and contact the authorities. Poulter's confession, however, was unusual. While fully describing the events of the past week, Poulter said he didn't remember the week between the killings, but also attributed his offences to a second personality he called Hell, which he said drove him to murder.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I don't believe that. He wasn't cuckoo crazy. There's no other second half. He planned to do this stuff. You agree with me on that? It's clear
it's all premeditated. It's 100% premeditated because he was stalking a place for a while for the first one, so that's definitely premeditated. He wanted to do
that
some
road
form of harm. In maybe full murder, clearly full murder. He was wanting to do this. He planned it out, and
he planned both.
Yeah, and then with this one, he's avidly picked. Like, it's a random place. It's not exactly a random place, but it's a building that he's gone into to do this. When people walk into a specific building to commit a crime, it's planned out to go and do it, because you don't just walk up to a random door and just go in and do that. It's definitely planned out. It's... Yeah, like, he planned to do it. It was 100% planned.
Yeah, it's because he pays for the sex worker, knowing well that he was going to beat her up afterwards and do those horrible things and rape her. And then buying that knife earlier and then bringing it to that massage parlour. You know.
Yeah.
The other... second part of you, Hell, just overtook you and took control of you to the point where you went to get a knife, and then you brought it with you to this massage parlour after you had been drinking beer on a nearby place, and then drove down to this other place where you knew you could get a massage from Thai women. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretty much, figured out what he was going to do and did it. So he later elaborated to the Prohibition Report writer that he thought the massage parlour workers were gang members out to get him. Don't understand that.
Fucking
Why would you
bullshit.
think massage parlour workers?
Oh my god.
Why would you think massage parlour workers were gang members? I don't understand that.
He's been watching too much fucking TV.
Excuse me. I just don't know what he's seen that makes him think that.
He's watched too much TV. That's what's happened there. He's watched too many movies, too much TV to think there's some kind of undercover shit going on in a massage parlour.
I mean, that writer who, the Prohibition Report writer, described him as polite, quietly spoken, and mostly lucid. Although people won't believe me, I do have remorse, Poulter was recorded as saying.
Bullshit.
He's quoted in saying this: I am sorry for what I did. I will be punished for the rest of my life, but I can't change the past. All I can do is change me.
Fucking wet wipe. No, you're not. Fuck off. Fuck off.
In 1997, after being declared sane, Poulter pleaded guilty to murder, rape, attempted murder, and possessing an offensive weapon in public. Days later, he was jailed for life at Wanganui prison with a 15-year non-parole period. So, he says he's got remorse, he's confessed himself. His mum said he needed to confess for his sins, that in previous attempts of doing crimes, he
it was premeditated. The cunt's not got remorse. You don't have remorse if you've premeditated something, because if you might have remorse if it was an accidental thing or it was on a whim and you weren't planning to do something like this. Yeah, you possibly will have remorse for the horrific thing that you've done. When you planned it the way he has, bitch, no, if you had remorse you wouldn't have done it in the first fucking place.
So, many victim impact statements were tendered to the court. 7 from Herbert's family and 10 from Natacha's family. Lada's family couldn't be reached, according to Justice Patterson's sentencing notes, and Ankana didn't pro-offer 1. It is unlikely, I suspect, that I will ever be so moved as I have been by the statement in this case that Justice Patterson said. I am conscious of the emotional and physiological harm the family and friends of the victim have suffered. You took 3 lives, but it is no exaggeration to say that you have devastated, if not destroyed, the lives of many others. At his sentencing, Hayden wrote one more note. This one starkly different to the one he sent to the Herald letter. Instead, the words read like a victim impact statement. Various words were crossed out and replaced with others. The word nightmares was substituted for bad dreams. He's quoted with saying, I think this is in the letter he wrote, "It's been almost a year, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with it all. I am constantly plagued and tormented with bad dreams. For me, it is a punishment on its own, and something I have to live with for the rest of my life. The remorse I have within me is genuine and deep, especially for Natacha, as her life was a lot like mine, filled with abuse and violence. I do not care if no one believes what I'm saying, but I need to say how sorry I am. I am sorry, Natacha. I am sorry, Lada. I am sorry, Herbert. I am so very sorry."
Get fucked.
Not believing that, mate.
I'm a fuck. No. Why'd you do it then? Bullshit. Get fucked. Nah, I don't give a flying shit.
It's the, I'm deeply sorry for Natacha because her life was a lot like mine, filled with abuse and violence.
The cunt looks like he could be a villain in The Hobbit. He can fuck off.
And the fact he's doing the whole thing of like, oh, I don't care if no one believes me, it's fine, but I'm telling the truth, but you're just not going to believe me.
No, because if you were fine with it, you can't say, because if you're fine with it, then that means that you don't give a shit. But if you were like, because any normal human being, if people thought they were constantly guilty for something that they genuinely had remorse for or whatever, like they didn't believe that you were sorry, then you wouldn't be fine with it. You wouldn't be.
No.
You wouldn't. Over time, like give it like 10 years or so, you might come to terms with the fact that no one's ever going to forgive you for it, and you can kind of learn to live with that. But you're not going to be 100% fine with it. But this couldn't, like, after, like, what, a few weeks, it's just like, yeah, I'm cool with it, what? And it's like, no, shut up.
Yeah, it's very petty, though. After doing these crimes, to be like, I am so very sorry for the people's lives I'm taking away. There and then you knew what you were doing, so you weren't sorry then for knowing you were going to take lives, but you confess yourself and know that you're going to face consequences, and then be like, I'm so sorry after that. It's like, I can't with that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't.
It's just bad. So he goes to prison. He was sentenced to prison in Wanganui Prison, which is one of the 18 adult correctional prisons in New Zealand. Excuse me. So yeah, he was actually first eligible for parole in late 2011, but it was denied. Yes, he was denied parole again in 2015 and 2016. Thank Lord. In June 2018, after 21 years behind bars, Hayden was paroled for the first time, with the board believing he was no longer a risk.
Bullshit.
In July, Hayden changed his name to John Leon Lorenzo and moved in with his sister, where he started a landscaping business. He had a long list of parole conditions, and his work and address had to be approved. He was also required to undertake drug and alcohol treatment. He was electronically monitored and not allowed to drink alcohol.
Why are you letting him change his name, though? That makes no fucking sense. Just, no. Like, if you're like, don't think he's a risk anymore. Yeah, but, just in case, because he killed, like, a fair few people, just don't let him change his fucking name. Because people are going to be looking for this Hayden guy. They're not going to be looking for this other cunt. Now, are they? No, they're not going to be looking for him, because that's not going to be resonated in the brain. But the other cunt might be. It's just odd.
He's got a pretty distinct last name, Poulter, and his first name, Hayden. It's pretty distinctive enough in itself. I don't know any Haydens. Do you?
I do. My cousin's called Hayden.
Oh. Not all Haydens are notoriously bad people, I hope.
Nah, Hayden's a good kid. He's a kid, so he's a good
So, yeah. Between June and August 2018, there were reportedly no issues. However, by late August 2018, it was reported that Poulter had started taking drugs and was supposedly planning to fake his own death so he could be free of his parole conditions. His prohibition officer, who was already concerned with some of his behaviour, informed the New Zealand Parole Board, who granted a recall application. On 27th of August 2018, Hayden was taken back into custody. The day of the recall, Hayden was given a risk assessment where he denied that he was going to self-harm. He did admit, however, that he wished to speak to a counsellor. On the 2nd of September, an officer attempted to make a referral to a private counselling provider. On the 4th of September, Hayden was seen by a nurse where he denied any thought of self-harm and suicide. The nurse decided the forensic services did therefore not need to be involved. So he, was taken back into custody. They're checking on him now because they're like, something's going on here, and it's not looking good. Which it wasn't, because on the 22nd of September 2018, Hayden was found dead in his cell at Wanganui prison, with his death being ruled as a suicide. The exact details and the method of his death are suppressed. It's not been let out. But yes, that means he died at the age of 57 from what they presumed to be suicide, which probably the case if he had thoughts of self-harm and suicide. He just wanted to end it all. He's
wrecked.
dead.
Get wrecked.
No idea where he's buried, but
luckily he didn't do anything when he was out other than do drugs. But
yeah.
The fact that he was planning to fake his own death so he could get away from his parole is like, if he would have done it then and he did it successfully, which I don't think he would have, that could have gone so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I know from seeing documentaries from people that it's tough to adjust to life when you come out of prison, so that's why a lot of people want to die. Because they won't cope with life. And we explained it with the Fritzl case. You don't realise when you're behind locked doors for so long and you've not seen the outside world, it's just a marvel trying to adjust. It's not something you can easily do, you know what I mean?
No.
You can't just poof. It's like with anything. I can't just shove a drum kit in front of Lauren and go, play the drums. And next thing you know, she's the best drummer in Manchester. No.
Just Manchester.
You need to take age and ages to get to a stage like that and learn and adjust and feel comfortable. Which is why these people, when they come out, they can't just, plonked after, say someone goes to prison for 20 years. So much shit's happened in 20 years that you think adjusting to it's fine.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like big long time periods. Like a lot of people who could be let out now, if it's been like 30 years, that's like the 90s. However, when they went in, they never had a phone. They never had a cell phone. They never had like a computer, like a big computer like now. There was never 3D games, this sort of thing. So probably he just wanted to die because he just wanted, probably in his mind, that was the ultimate confessing for his sins. As I explained, he handed himself in because he wanted to confess to his bad things. Maybe this was the ultimate thing, that other second half of him, that hell, as he described it, told him that to truly confess for your murders, you must kill yourself. But we'll never know.
No, that was an interesting one, because that is like, that's not really one that I've ever heard of. I think there's a fair few people that haven't heard of it before.
No, I mean, in the media in New Zealand, he's been labelled as New Zealand's first serial killer, and I couldn't find much on other New Zealand serial killers who weren't like yonks ago in like 1400s-esque or whenever it was. So I thought this was a very interesting case to cover because it details more than just him as a killer. It details New Zealand on itself for like him being the first one they've labeled their serial killer, the area he's done it in and the notoriety, because like like a lot of cases we cover, the
Yeah.
area in which they do the crimes becomes the notorious thing. You know what I mean? Like, I could say a serial killer and you could be like, oh yeah, they did it in this area and that's the area that's now notorious for it. And because it's the first one for New Zealand, serial killer wise, that area has now become synonymous. Which is true, because if you Googled it, I can't remember how you say it now, but the K Road, the article I sent you,
Yeah.
the infamous K Road. If people are making articles saying the infamous,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But hopefully Lauren was showing you the photos. His mugshot's very weird. He's not even looking at the...
He's looking down. He looks very sad.
Yeah, that's what I saw when I saw it. So I couldn't find much actual photos of him himself.
Yeah, if you listen on audio, which you might be, go check out on YouTube where I've been uploading like all the pictures and stuff.
Because where is it? They had an image of him on the security camera when he meets the first victim.
Yeah, why is he wearing a fucking Union Jack flag?
I don't know. I mean, you know that Union Jack is on New Zealand's flag, right?
Yeah, but like from that angle, it just looks like he's just...
It is just a Union Jack. Yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's just that... Maybe we don't know about it, but there's more of a sense of UK-ness and stuff.
I think
there.
that's just that's just a flat-out Union Jack flag. That's not...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You know when you like go abroad somewhere and for some reason they'll be flying a flag, big flags in these other places, or like pubs and shit. Maybe he was out and about and just had a Union Jack. Because as I said, there's the mix of the cultures.
Has he got a fucking mullet in that picture?
I think he does.
Some people can pull off mullets. He is not one of them.
Yeah, but there's obviously we have the image of the letter.
Yeah, he looks.
Which is horrible.
Yeah, he's a creature.
But yeah, the mugshot I find weird because that's the only image of him.
Yeah.
And then in the other article, it had images of the other people. Like I mentioned, that Jane Furlong who went missing.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And that Debbie Purdy who was like a sex worker. And it's so weird because, I don't know what that road is like now, but what is it? K Road. Yeah, look, if I just Google K Road Auckland. Yeah. With a reputation of the red light district, now considered one of the cultural areas. Yeah, it's undergoing a slow process of gentrification, which is the word for when you change the... It's one of the ones where they had a photo. Was it? Oh, yeah, and that one of the infamous K Road, it actually has a photo. If you see at the top, I don't know if you saw it, the 1995 Karangapa Road street scene.
Yeah, also, it's from what I can see, like, now...
Yeah, that old photo's weird, though, because it says... XX adult videos, adult shop, New Zealand's largest range of adult supplies. Because, as I mentioned, Wellington's the capital, but Auckland's the most populous area.
Yeah.
But having a look at the road now, it's totally different, but...
From what I can see, K Road has, like, a very nice side to it. You don't have to think about the negatives. Yeah. It is... home to many cafes, restaurants, bars, and it's pretty much known for its gay scene. So
yeah, there's a pride flag. I mean, you can't. If an area is notorious for having sex-related stuff, trying to get away from that,
it's gonna be difficult. Yeah,
it's gonna be quite tough. But and now they've the big LGBT scene and everything happening there. I think it's quite good, but
that's good.
Its history is just implemented in there. because it's a pretty well developed sort of like area within Auckland that the stigma's still there.
Yeah.
But looking at the old photos, it's obviously changed since then. But it's interesting now that there's an infamous area of New Zealand you could say. There's not many areas I could say, oh, I know that's infamous for this. But it's been a good case to cover, and I'm kind of glad I picked a decent one. I was worried I wouldn't be able to pick a decent one, but I don't know. What do you think about this case?
I thought it was
What are your
good. I
thoughts?
thought it was good. I think it was a very good one to do that's fairly not massively long because I'm still partially dead. So
Yeah, but
it was a very good one. I think it's very good insight into it, especially with his mindset on a lot of things.
yeah, and I think you're on the same boat as me that this guy knew what he was doing. All this sorriness
Yeah,
was
it's
bollocks.
bullshit.
This man had set it out. Not in the case of other serial killers, where like he wanted to be. You know how you mentioned some of them where they try to up the numbers of someone else, be like, oh, I
Yeah.
can murder more folk than you,
Yeah.
or I want to be known as this. It just so happened that he is labelled as New Zealand's first serial killer. He never had the mindset of I want to be New Zealand's first serial killer. But
yeah, that was never in his.
he just did
Yeah.
it, and that's how it's become. But I do praise the fact that New Zealand's first serial killer, as they've labelled it, happened in the 90s, which is quite late. And that's a good sign. I'm not saying anything about him is good, but in the terms of
The fact that
there's
it was
not
very
been
late compared to America.
yeah, compared to America or like us,
Yeah,
we've had a lot of
America and the UK, where a lot. Where in the UK, it's very scattered. I feel like over time, since the 70s and 60s, it's very scattered over like the time and everything. Whereas America, the
Yeah.
70s was not a good fucking time if you were in
no,
California, especially. Just like it was not a good place to be. Whereas like yeah, this didn't fucking happen until mid-90s. Like
no,
2 years before
But-
I was born.
it rocks the area, which is why it's an
Yeah, if
interesting
it's
case.
first one, it will.
Because for New Zealand, this sort of stuff's not happened, like at
That
all.
yeah,
When
imagine
it
like
does happen,
imagine like you live in New Zealand and then you turn on the news in the morning and it says like serial killer in Auckland and it's like
yeah.
What?
Even if you're on the other island,
yeah, you just kind of
the
like
lower island.
you're probably just thinking, have they spelt America wrong there? Like
No.
well no, like that's probably what they're thinking because like they're
And-
probably like how we are in the they're also the same way as how we are in the UK when it comes to if there's ever a gun crime in New Zealand or in the UK, it's rare that it happens. But if it pops up on the news that it's happened in either country, you're like, have they said America wrong here? Like,
Yeah, and I mean, it's good in this case that they've had tight, restrictable gun laws.
yeah,
Where, I mean, you know, if you knew anything about New Zealand before this case, you would have known that more than likely it would have been via stabbings
yeah,
or
yeah,
using
yeah.
other means. Because New Zealand, as I said, is pretty much like us. I mean, if you
They've
saw the
only
photos,
just had to change their gun laws because they've never really had it before.
no, I mean, as you saw on the photos, the driver on the left, they're a mixed bash of culture, but in terms of laws with guns and stuff, they're similar to us,
Yeah,
which sucks that, you know, people have to go the way of stabbing. But as we said, it's probably rocked that area of Auckland for sure. And I
Yeah,
guess at the
100%.
time, you know, it's weird because at that time, right, people would have known that serial killers and things were a thing, but it hadn't happened where they were. So when it did happen, maybe folk might have been like, well, maybe it was only time before someone snapped round here, or something bad happened in that sex worker area. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly.
And I'm not saying that if a serial killer murder happens here, that we're just like we shy it away. But we know about this stuff because it happens. It's happened a fair amount of times in our history. That another one's like, it's another one to add to the list, and it's shocking. But in terms of the people in New Zealand at this time, probably not as shocking because it's their first one, and people must have been dead shit scared.
Yeah, exactly.
But I thought was interesting because you've now heard about a case from New Zealand, which I didn't know there'd be
Exactly.
any. So it just
Yeah.
shows that no country's safe.
Yeah,
The whole world
exactly.
has got the whole world has really messed up places everywhere that you might not even know about,
Mm.
or bad people happening in all these areas. So some countries have good reputations for good reasons, like a lot of the Nordic countries or like Switzerland, or in this case New Zealand, but bad stuff can still happen. So gladly this guy's dead. He sh-
Yeah.
Letting him out on parole was bad. He shouldn't have been out at all.
Oh yeah, 100% no.
Even if
It
oh
was
he's
even if it
deemed
wasn't for
sane.
long.
Even if he's deemed sane, it's like no, he murdered folk with maybe an intent to murder more. I don't know. As we said, it's so weird that he did it and then willingly confessed. That's what's getting me.
Yeah.
Like he just willingly went and confessed. But
Yeah, that's an interesting
this
case.
is an interesting case. So hopefully you guys liked it because I took over from this one. So
Yes, thank you for
you
doing
know,
that because I would not have had the energy or time to do
no,
it.
and it's a small one. It's
Yeah.
not a massive, massive one, and there's not too much gruesome stuff. But there was stuff enough for a trigger warning. But you know,
Yeah, and let me double check for next week because I want to see if we've already covered this one because I don't think we have, and I've got an idea for one because we've done a few tame ones lately. I don't think we've done it.
tame, but the spectrum of them has been different. Because we did
Okay.
Mary Bell, a child killer.
I've got a gruesome one, and it is not a UK or America one.
Oh, okay.
Next week's episode is going to be on Peter Curtin, aka the Dusseldorf Vampire.
Oh, the Dusseldorf vampire.
He is a fucking wrong'un. And he was, and a little bit of a spoiler, but a little bit of a thing to add to it is that he was executed via guillotine. So that's going to be very interesting to hear about. Because I don't think we've had someone who's been executed via guillotine.
Ah, and that's a, you know a fun fact. Want to hear a fun fact about guillotines? But you probably already know it, don't you?
They only ended in the 70s.
No.
Okay, go on.
Oh no. Yes, actually, yes, it is.
Mid 70s, yeah.
The last execution by guillotine occurred in 1997 in France.
1997?
No, 1977. Sorry.
About to say it was definitely the 70s.
No, it was 1977. But oh, that's what I'm thinking. Wait. Oh no, it was September 1981 where France outlawed capital punishment altogether.
But
Which
the
is why
last
they
one
imagined.
was in 1977, yeah. So yeah, that one is going to be next week's episode. Keep an eye on our Instagram if you want any more updates. I've noticed quite we're going. More people have started to find our Instagram lately, which is awesome. And
Yes, that's good.
if you've come along from the band Skinned, then thank you very much. It was a pleasure seeing them at Download Festival on Friday. Basically, I've never seen them play before. My friend was like, "No, you'll like them. You'll like them. I guarantee you'll like them. They're right up your street." When I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll catch them play. Why not?" Stood there, and they opened their set with The Night Stalker, and I was like, "Okay, now I see what you mean.
Ooh.
I see what you mean now." And there's many mentions of different cases in between each song, and it was fucking epic. So yeah, I posted a little thing about the fact that I was there for that, and they very, very happily reposted the True Crime Friday podcast Instagram story where I was there, which
Thank
was
you.
absolutely incredible. So, Skin, if you are listening or watching to this, thank you so much. That means a
Thank
lot. To both of us, that is absolutely incredible. You guys were amazing
Yes.
live, and I'm definitely listening to you a lot freaking more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, check out our Instagram for updates on episodes, stuff like that, and I need to crash because I have been fairly active today. But then again, I did only get back midday yesterday. This is Monday we're at Tuesday now for me and Matt while we're recording this. But I got back on Monday after 5 days of camping, little sleep because camping in a tent wakes you up at 4 a.m. So after going to bed at like 2. So yeah. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. If you have been watching, I hope you're enjoying all of this, and we just hit 300 plays on the podcast as well, so thank you
Woo-hoo.
all for that. That was an incredible
yes.
thing to see when I got back.
It's good to know that we can spiel on true crime stuff and people can listen to it and enjoy it. So thank you so much. We put in the effort.
Yes.
And it pays off, so thank you.
And keep an eye out on our Instagrams in general, because coming very soon, we will be releasing a brand new podcast all about music. So you don't have to hear us ramble on here as much about music, but it's going to be all about music. It's going to be about albums, where we'll be going through them, reviewing them, bands, stuff like that. It's going to be mostly our kind of music, so expect a lot of rock
and other stuff.
Yeah,
we will do the same as I'll just say this now. We chose music because it's an interesting topic that I know nothing about and Lauren knows nothing about. I'm just kidding. No, but we'll probably take it in turn with choosing stuff as we do with the true crime.
We'll talk about like festivals and gigs that we might be going to, or gigs that we have gone to, because obviously we're going to talk about that kind of stuff. I'll be going to a lot more gigs fairly round now. I'm working at them a lot more, so we're going through all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in the music aspect of side of things as well, that aren't true crime related, then keep an eye out on our Instagrams. We're still trying to come up with a name. We've got the first episode kind of planned, but just let us know what name we should have if you want. Like, give us some suggestions for names and we'll roll with it and have a look through them. But yeah, thank you guys for listening or watching or both, and well, obviously both if you are listening to it. Watching it, that's a stupid thing to say. But I will see you next week on the True Crime Friday podcast. Thank you for listening, watching. Bye.
Bye.